Ryan's had a bit of a rocky ride at Memphis, just to call it for what it is. When you're coming off the heels of the greatest success that this program's seen with Mike Norvell at the helm, and you have some ups and you have some downs. We've seen a lot of this fan base against him at times. Just like I said, call it what it is. We've seen it. We've seen people calling for him. There was a time where it felt like it was going to happen just because his supporters were very few and far between. But now we have really seen that shift with the 10-win season last year, with the big bowl win that they had against Iowa State. And now with the 3-0 start to the season, another win over a Power 4 program in Florida State, and going and, beating the coach that he coached under at Memphis. What have you seen, just from social media, from interactions, from all that kind of stuff, as far as the outlook on Silverfield and how it's changed drastically over the last year plus?
I mean, there's been that like lukewarm feeling, even after the 10-3 season. Like everybody was kind of lukewarm on it, and they have high hopes going into the season, but they're still being, cautiously optimistic.
Right.
After that win, feels like no one's being cautiously optimistic. They're being as loudly optimistic and as excited as they possibly could be, and for good reason. I think Ryan has turned the corner as a head coach. And one thing that I think at the beginning of his tenure, we neglected to just sort of bring up or talk about enough. He was a first-time head coach. COVID, NIL, transfer portal, all hit. It's hard to be a first-time head coach, much less having to deal with all those changes that quickly. Right. I think you saw a turning point at the beginning of 2023. He knew what he had to bring in the transfer portal. He knew he had to recruit the players on his own team. And what you've seen is some of the best continuity in college football right now, and some of the best ability to just plug holes that he needs to plug, and doing it in a way where you're not spending a hell of a lot of NIL money. You're sort of finding some diamonds in the rough that have been able to come through for you. I also think he has gotten better at selling his program and talking to the fans. I think that's been a switch. The confidence has definitely changed with him. And, another thing I think he prioritized in 2023, sort of looking at the rest of the NIL world, seeing what SMU was doing and seeing what UTSA had done with Frank Harris. I think he prioritized, hey, we got to find a way to raise some money in the NIL world. And I know we can give a lot of credit to Laird Veach, a lot of credit to, a bunch of people behind the scenes, FedEx for sure. But that doesn't happen unless there is a belief behind the scenes in Ryan Silverfield. And I think he brought the right people along at the right time. And I truly believe this is a different, if you're still holding on to the 2 6-6 years, I think you're still being a little short-sighted. I think this is a different Ryan Silverfield and a different program altogether than what we saw 2 and 3 years ago.
Yeah, he just looks so much more comfortable on the sidelines, which is just natural. That's going to come with time. But not only a visual thing, but just when the flow of the game, as far as his comfortability with, situational football, situational awareness, when to call timeouts, just those different things that you can only get from reps, from doing it. And clearly he's
still aggressive as shit though. My God.
No, he is super aggressive, but that's just his style. That's different from, doing one thing or doing the other and kind of going back and forth and not having an identity. I think that's kind of overall what I'm trying to say. We see an identity with Ryan Silverfield now. And of course, once again, I'm not trying to say anything about him early in his career as a head coach. It just takes time to find that. That's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in your first season. And it just feels like now he knows his identity. He knows who he is as a head coach. He's comfortable with it. He's comfortable with game flow and game management. And then obviously all the stuff I'm talking about on the field right now, but all the stuff that you mentioned as far as behind the scenes and what he's been able to do, that's huge. But if you don't if you don't capitalize on the field, if you don't go win ball games, then it doesn't really matter. And I think
no one gives a shit about your GPA if you're going 4-8 every year, right?
No, and nobody cares how high of transfer ratings you have or what recruits that you're getting if you're not having success on the field. And I think we're kind of seeing a culmination of everything come together: the recruiting, the coaching staff, the comfortability with just having an identity and on the field game management, and the roster catching up from the talent that they lost at the time that he was taking over, and the guys that they brought in and kind of cultivated this roster with. So it just feels like a full culmination right now. And obviously we're only 3 weeks in. It's a long season ahead, and not to look too far ahead, but when you just look at the schedule and what's coming up with 9 more games left, there will more than likely be only one game that Memphis is not favored in, and that's the last game of the season against Tulane. Other than that, at least right now, according to ESPN's Football Power Index, they are favored in every single game, not against Tulane.